How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Happy birthday to my brother-in-law, Paul, and also to the United States Marine Corps. 250 years old, the Marines. My brother-in-law, not quite that old. The phone number 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. The shutdown is coming to an end. And, well, the Democrats are not happy with the Democrats. I've got to start first with this. I see a number of people on the right saying, well, I mean, the shutdown was good for the Democrats. They won the elections, after all. That's what this was all for. I do believe the Democrats wanted to energize their base, but they were going to win anyway. The party out of power does well in the midterm elections and does really well in the off-year elections. The Virginia Republican campaign of Winsome Sears was a disaster. It dragged down other candidates. It could have been much better run campaign. Winsome Sears' campaign had a lot to do with the massive losses of Virginia Republicans, but the Republicans weren't going to do well anyway. It didn't matter whether there was a shutdown or not. The Democrats may have presumed that the energy was there for the shutdown, but the Democrats were going to have a good election night anyway because the party out of power does well in those elections, and Donald Trump really does fire up the Democratic base. And we're only, 2 weeks removed from the No Kings rallies that kept the energy of the Democratic Party alive to get them out to the vote. So, yeah, they were going to do fine without a shutdown. But the shutdown is going to ultimately, I think, be disastrous for the Democrats. Why? Very simply because the Democratic Party has become a party of massive opposition to anything and everything Donald Trump wants. They cannot define themselves in any way other than opposition to Donald Trump, and they're now going to fund Trump. See, as a conservative who has long supported shutdowns, my view is keep it shut down. Why not? Keep it shut down. And I'm okay with the government being shut down. Y'all, I flew to Las Vegas this weekend on Friday morning, flew to Las Vegas, came back last night. There were no travel hiccups on Delta. Now, my buddy who flew from D.C., there were travel hiccups for him because of the cuts and slowdowns in D.C., That was by air traffic controllers. I ran into an air traffic controller and his wife. He's on the verge of retirement, and he and his wife had spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get food and money and other resources for young air traffic controllers. They were a very, very sweet couple, and they were talking about the madness of it and the young people who come into air traffic control not prepared for being a government employee at a time of a government shutdown. It's one of them, they said, was a new father, had a kid, wasn't getting a paycheck, couldn't buy diapers and things like that, and they were relying on the generosity of others. There are certainly people who get hurt during the shutdown. We shouldn't deny it, but concurrent to all of that, most of us never felt it, might as well. Here's the problem, though. The progressives went into this without a plan. You got to understand this. This is a very basic thing you just need to understand. When Republicans shut down the government in 2019, it was over funding for immigration, more or less, the border wall. When they shut it down with Barack Obama, twice. The first time was about defunding Obamacare, and the second time was about spending with the debt ceiling increase, and they got sequestration. They didn't get anything out of the Obamacare one, but it was a consistent message. They were fighting to get rid of Obamacare. They were fighting because of the national debt. They got sequestration. They actually got a very momentous deal out of that one. They got some money for immigration reform when Trump was president. They shut it down. The Democrats are getting nothing out of this in large part because they didn't have a message. The Democrats started with this was about health care, and then it morphed into we can't fund anything related to Donald Trump. They never had a consistent message to the American people. Oh, we want to fund Obamacare. Well, it's not really that. It's we're funding Hitler. Well, it's not really that. It's this other thing. They never had a good, consistent plan. And now it's coming to an end because a number of Democrats have been willing to change their mind on it. And how's it playing? This is Brendan Boyle on MSNBC.
On Tuesday, we essentially had the proof that the American people overwhelmingly were on the Democrats' side of this argument. Polls have been showing for weeks, over a month, that a pretty large number of Americans were with us. But people always question about the validity of polls. Where here we had on Tuesday the ultimate poll, and Democrats won everywhere. I mean, I'll take Pennsylvania, for example. Every competitive race or race that thought was going to be competitive, we won by double digits. We won in Clearfield County, a place that had not elected a Democrat in over a decade and that Donald Trump had carried by more than 50 points. That's how sweeping the victory was on Tuesday. So it's pretty clear that, we went to the polls. The American people understood that Republicans were making their costs go up, that Democrats were fighting to bring costs down and fight to save the health care of the American people. And now all of a sudden, after this big victory, it's the Democratic side, or at least enough Democrats in the Senate that are essentially caving.
That's a Democratic representative from Pennsylvania who just can't believe that they would reopen the government. Here's a little more roundtable discussion, MSNBC.
It's strange, Dean, to go back to the original sort of part of this conversation of whether he is a good deal maker. I mean, in a way, it seems like the president is kind of getting what he wanted 40 days ago when all this started. He was out there saying that, this is all about Democrats trying to give health care to illegal immigrants. He just said that to reporters moments ago, repeated that refrain that Democrats had actually very successfully pushed back against. Then there's all this energy. In the wake of the election on Tuesday, the president made remarks saying basically, wow, Republicans are being harmed by all of this, acknowledging that he was on his back foot. And now here he is winning again? How did he do it?
The Democrats, I don't understand how a Democratic senator goes, wow, we won really big. Let me cave now. I don't understand. That makes no sense to me.
Well, maybe to Anthony's point, if they were cynical, like if we wanted just to hold this out until we get through the election and then.
Yes, the election. Hold it out till we get through the election. In fact, this is Senator Tim Kaine, who is one of the flippers.
Do you wish that you would have started looking for this off-ramp sooner? You said that Republicans were never going to change in their position.
I didn't fully understand how dug in they were, again, because I was so focused on the Virginia elections. I wasn't in this discussion on the health care to see how dug in they were. But even as I was not part of these discussions, I was saying to Thune and others on the floor going back, listen, I need you. Some of you heard me say this in the hall. I need a moratorium on mischief. Others are working on the health care thing. I trust them. Others are working on the approach thing. I trust them. I need a moratorium on mischief, because if we vote to open and then the immediate step next week is Donald Trump fires a lot more people, it's going to blow up trust to get the full year deal. And so I've been preaching this moratorium on mischief for a month, but I think partly why did they finally give me the moratorium on mischief on RIFs? They needed my vote, but they also saw the election on Tuesday.
If you think that sounds like a bunch of insider gobbledygook, it's because it is. He's basically admitting that the Democrats were holding out for an election. So you federal employees who haven't gotten paychecks, it was the Democrats. Think about this. One of the most contested races is going to be in Georgia. John Ossoff repeatedly voted not just to keep the government closed, but voted not to pay federal employees. There were opportunities to pay federal employees, and John Ossoff refused. How do you think this is going to play with Georgia voters? Ossoff's position was essentially, if I do nothing, progressives spare me. If I do anything to show leadership, they're going to come after me. And so he sat back and did nothing, and he doesn't want to open the government again. How do you think that's going to play with the military in Georgia, with the air traffic controllers in Georgia, with the weather service in Georgia? How do you think that's going to play? Probably not well. Bernie Sanders as well, furious.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. What it does, first of all, is it raises health care premiums for over 20 million Americans by doubling, and in some cases tripling or quadrupling. People can't afford that when we're already paying the highest prices in the world for health care. Number 2, it paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Studies show that will mean that some 50,000 Americans will die every year unnecessarily. And all of that was done to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. As everybody knows, just on Tuesday, we had an election all over this country. And what the election showed is that the American people want us to stand up to Trumpism, to his war against working class people, to his authoritarianism. That is what the American people wanted. But tonight, that is not what happened.
The progressives are furious. The Democratic Party base upset. No one's really a winner in this thing, if we're honest about it. No one's really a winner. What's wild to see, however, is the angst and anger at the progressive base who felt like they were winning something. And I'm not really sure what exactly it is they were winning because, I mean, what did they get? They haven't gotten anything. Republicans, they lost an election, but again, they were going to lose that election anyway, and you all know it. You all know it because the party out of the White House in off-year elections does pretty good. Remember, John Bel Edwards in Louisiana was able to win in a situation like that. The Republicans, they got problems. But the Democrats have more problems. The Democrats have more problems because the Democrats have convinced themselves they're funding Hitler. And when you convince yourself you're funding Hitler, there's really no middle ground, is there? There's no way for you to walk it back in a way that you're not funding Hitler, because Hitler is Hitler and Hitler is bad. And so when you're telling yourselves and those around you, well, we can't fund Hitler, and now suddenly you're funding Hitler, well, you funded Hitler, good people of the Democratic Party. You have funded Hitler now. That's your talking point, by the way, not my talking point. To be clear, I don't think Donald Trump is Hitler, but these people do. And 8 Democrats have now decided that they're going to. Oddly enough, it was some conservatives, Mike Lee of Utah, Rick Scott of Florida, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, withheld their votes last night because they wanted more clarity on what compromises the Republicans were going to launch. And it turns out there aren't any compromises. What the Republicans did is they said, we'll give you a chance to have it voted on. We'll give you a chance to vote on it. John Cornyn was in Texas, had to get on a plane and go back to D.C. to give the 60th vote to advance the deal. Now, it's going to be a couple more days because Democrats have some stalling tactics, but the clean continuing resolution is going to pass. We can do this all over again in January. But for now, the Democrats have caved, and the Democratic Party base is furious because, as I told you, and this, listen, I don't try to toot my horn enough, but if you listened to this program for the past 40 days of this shutdown, you knew this is exactly the way it was going to happen. Democrats would get nothing. I have told you the entire time, don't doubt me. the Democrats will get nothing and they will cave. And we have told the Republicans to hold the line, and they did. And you should note, all of you people like me who oftentimes thinks the Republicans are the ones to cave, for once, they didn't cave. The Democrats did. They got nothing after 40 days and are reopening the government. I'm a mattress snob. I travel a lot. I want a good night's sleep in my own bed. I miss my mattress when I'm gone, and I discovered Brooklyn Bedding, and I love them. I was a little bit hesitant for an online mattress until I tried Brooklyn Bedding, because you get 120 nights to try it. And I wanted a mattress that wasn't just memory foam, feeling like I'm laying in mud. I wanted one with the support of the coils, and they are not only 100% fiberglass free, but they've got great sturdy coils for a firm mattress, a great night's sleep, and they offer a 120-night comfort trial. Love it, or they'll help you return it or swap it. Go to brooklynbedding.com. Use promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. Not available to anybody else. You got to use my code ERIC, brooklynbedding.com, promo code ERIC for 30% off site-wide. Support the show. Let them know we sent you after checkout with that promo code. It's brooklynbedding.com. The promo code is ERIC. Handcrafted mattresses in the United States of America, and they're fantastic. brooklynbedding.com. I will be here live tomorrow, but my wife has her oncology scans in the morning, so I'll do my show from my flagship station because the hospital where she gets the scans done is just down the street, and the appointment's like 10:45 in the morning. So I'll get up and do the show in the studio after the appointment, but prayers are appreciated for her oncology scans. This has been a rough several months for my wife, physically getting sick and breaking her foot and stuff, and it has been mentally taxing for me. Just the last couple of months have just been really insane. I managed to check out on Friday, went to Las Vegas, was actually supposed to give a speech in Vegas, and thankfully the very wealthy people all decided that they didn't want to go to Las Vegas and canceled the speech, and I stayed and played golf. And I played golf at the Wynn Golf Course, which is incredible. It was insane. Went to the Grand Canyon and did not sleep a whole lot, but man, it was just nice to not have to take care of people and run to the grocery store. And it's been kind of exhausting the last couple of months. I needed the break. Won some money at the craps table and played golf badly. Y'all, I played golf in the desert of Las Vegas and still managed to find water. That's right. Got multiple balls in the water in a desert. But that's okay. I had a lot of fun. The course was tremendously beautiful. And it was nice. Took two friends of mine with me, and we just had a lot of fun. And now it's nice to be back. A little bit tired physically, but mentally sharp as ever. Definitely what I needed. But prayers appreciated. Scans tomorrow. I'll give you an update when I get on air tomorrow as to how things went. Right now, let me tell you about Vision Computer. If you call them at 404-COMPUTE, they can take care of you with scams these days. I told you all the other day I was here, and my agent got a text message giving him a 6-digit PIN and a website link and said he needed to put it in. And I was like, you might be being scammed. I can't be everywhere, but Vision Computers is, and they can help you with scams. Your relatives, your employees, their managed IT service, you can literally get them on the phone. If you have them as managed IT, someone calls you, Apu from Bangalore or Mumbai, and he's trying to sell you something, you can get Vision on the phone. An actual human being can navigate whether it's legit or a scam. Not only that, they can help manage your computers for yourself, your loved ones, your business. They save you money. Call them at 404-COMPUTER. Go to visioncomputers.com. Tell them I sent you. You might save some more money. For $199 a year per computer, they can be your managed IT service, and you get a special phone number you call 15 seconds or less. An actual human being, not an AI chatbot, answers the phone. It's what sets Vision apart. They use real human beings. 404-COMPUTE, visioncomputers.com. Give Vision a call today. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Don't forget, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, all that. By the way, I'll be touring the venue tomorrow for the Not Safe for Radio show. If you're thinking of presents for friends and family for the holidays, stand by. We'll make the announcement as soon as we can once we've signed on the dotted line for the venue. But we're looking at doing it just outside the perimeter in Atlanta. And then we're also looking at taking it on the road to a number of other cities. You know, I said I was going to do it one time, and everybody's like, you got to do more, you got to do more, you got to do more. So just stand by, and I'll get you the details as soon as I can. It'll be a great Christmas present. Remember, it sold out in 6 hours last time, so we're getting a larger venue this time. I want to shift from the shutdown. We'll get back to it in the economic news of the day, the president's plans and things like that. We'll get to it. But I want to talk for a moment about transgenderism because there's some interesting news out there. Sane and normal people know basic biology. If you have XY chromosomes, you're a male, XX, and you're a female. It's a little more complicated than that, but only because some people can have mutations where they're born as intersex. They have characteristics of male and female, but in either way, they default to one or the other. That is, they have more outward appearance of being female or more outward appearance of being male. I had a cousin who had that genetic mutation and was very much a woman and married, but also couldn't have kids, among other things. And the left has tried to complicate basic genetics. And, you know, even for people who have extra chromosomes in intersex situations, it's the first two pairings, the XX and the XY, that are determinative for what sex you are. And this is not in dispute with biologists. This is not in dispute with geneticists. It's only in dispute with the pseudoscience of the left. They have doctors who will tell you otherwise, but you know there are doctors who tell you that vaccines cause autism. You can find a doctor to tell you whatever you want. That means he's right. There's been a common trend in the rise of transgenderism in the United States that has gone largely unremarked upon by major members of the media because of the hate that might be directed in various people's way. And that is, there appears to be a pattern of kids who are special needs, particularly kids with autism, being surrounded by indoctrinators and others who convince the kids they're trans. This has been a remarkable pattern that the vast number of kids who have identified as transgenderism have other mental issues. And in some cases, the girls or the boys who identify as trans girls, in many cases, have a deeply influential mother who has issues with men. There have been more than one well-documented cases of moms who have issues with men who give birth to boys who pressure them into transitioning to girls. These are things that the media doesn't like to talk about, that the left sure doesn't like to talk about, because the left is so defined by victim culture and victimology and intersectionalism that they've given rise to the legitimacy of transgenderism. But now there's actually a lot of data out that transgenderism is collapsing among the young. This is from Eric Kaufman at Skeptic. A few weeks ago, I published results from 6 waves of the massive Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, annual survey of undergraduate students. The data were unequivocal. The share of students identifying as a gender other than male or female, that is non-binary, peaked in 2023 and has halved in 2 years. It's a stunning reversal in the culture that will reverberate through society and politics. The survey captures over 50,000 students per year from nearly 250 leading American universities. Its size guarantees statistical power and enables us to look at small subgroups like queer and trans people. FIRE data is a random sample. a small percentage of each university student body. And I wanted to be sure it triangulated with 2 surveys, capturing a much greater share of the total. One comes from elite Andover Phillips Prep School near Boston. The other is run by Brown University's student newspaper. Both interview a far higher share of their target pool than prior surveys, up to 50% for Brown freshmen and 75% for Andover. The surveys corroborate the peak trans pattern in the fire data, revealing a rapid decline from 2023. I expanded more fully these findings in my University of Buckingham Center for Heterodox Social Sciences report, which also found that the decline in non-binary identification was matched by a 10-point drop in unconventional sexual identifications, namely in students identifying their sexual orientation as something other than heterosexual or homosexual, such as pansexual, queer, questioning, bisexual, asexual. Many students that identify as neither male nor female also identify as sexually nonconforming. Sexual orientation has been measured in more youth surveys for longer than gender identity has been, while gay and lesbian share remained flat through 2020 to 25. The broader non-heterosexual group, covering bisexual, queer, pansexual, asexual, questioning, and other labels, rose steeply to 2023 and then fell across a wide range of surveys. The non-heterosexual portion peaked at around 30% overall, reaching as high as 40% as progressive-leaning Ivy League schools like Brown and 50% in liberal arts colleges such as Smith. Importantly, the decline in nonconforming sexual orientation parallels the decline in nonconforming gender identity, suggesting a common underlying dynamic. You should know that there are some people deeply invested in the trans issues who insist all the data is wrong. All the data is wrong. But it's not actually the case. All the data is not wrong. In fact, multiple colleges and universities are seeing this trend. And you know what's happening is that the young people now coming into college have been repulsed by what they've seen. Repulsed. Many of us my age have been repulsed as well, seeing some of this nonsense. So one researcher is Jen Twing, professor of psychology at San Diego State University, the leading quantitative youth trends researcher in the country. She found that in the youngest cohort, they were the least likely to identify as trans, portending a future decline in transgenderism. There have been a number of skeptics who have, through this information, declared transgenderism a social contagion. Twinge analyzed data from the Monitoring the Future survey, which surveys teens as young as 13. The share of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders identifying as neither male nor female dropped by half between 2022 and 2024, the change sharpest among 8th graders. Jen Twinge writes that the trend confirms a broader pattern in which new patterns arise first among the youngest, spreading later and less forcibly to older teens. In other words, what's the trend? Well, this reminds me of my son. My 16-year-old son last year would have been 15 at the time. My daughter was in our kitchen. She was discussing a kid at her college who identifies as trans and uses she, they pronouns. That's right. She, they. Very individualized, boutique gender. Another kid in class referred to the girl as a she. Remember, the kid uses she, they pronouns. The other kid referred to her as she. The professor frog marched the girl up to the front of the room and berated her. This girl from rural Georgia at a purportedly Christian-adjacent university getting berated for failure to respect someone's pronouns in college. My daughter is recounting the insanity of this, and my son, who is 15 at the time, says, y'all, I know I'm one of them, but I hate my generation. Yes. There's been an insanity that has swept through it, and here's what it is. Let's be real honest about what this is. There are people in a world of conformity who decided they wanted a boutique custom gender identity to stand out. It's a pathological narcissism is what it is. Everybody's got to respect your pronouns. Listen, if you've got to respect someone else's pronouns, that person has power over you. If you can get in trouble for refusing to play their pronoun game, they have power over you, and that's what they wanted. They don't feel in charge, and so they feel in charge by identifying as something that they're not, and that gives them leverage over you. For those of you British, leverage. It gives them leverage over you. It gives them the ability to control your thoughts and actions and words as they create a boutique custom reality for themselves that everyone else is forced to, through bullying and punishment, honor. And it sounds like the youngest cohort out there is done being bullied. They're tired of it. Kids my kids' age now make fun of it. They make jokes about it. Now, here's the downside of it, and this is the real-world downside of it. A lot of doctors and academics went along with what everyone else realized was nonsense and have done a lot of harm and damage. There are people now permanently sterilized and permanently disfigured because doctors, sometimes parents, academics, and others went along with what was and always has been a social contagion. That damage can't be reversed. And what's going to happen is the parents, in particular, and a lot of the doctors are going to be the last ones to recognize that they were involved in a social contagion. Think of the very few, and it actually wasn't very many, but think of the very few women in Salem who were killed because the public decided they were witches. It was a social contagion. Young people got whipped into a frenzy, convinced that other people were witches. They made accusations. A few women were killed. The people who were complicit in the deaths of those women could never deny what they claimed. Even though it wasn't true, they could never deny it. It's the same thing here. The people who have encouraged kids to chop off body parts and have massive grueling surgeries and sterilize themselves are never going to be able to admit it. Colin Wright of the Wall Street Journal. I was an academic scientist at Penn State in February 2020 when I became the target of an online mob for tweeting about transgender identity. I shared a link to an article from The Guardian with the accompanying quote, Sweden's Board of Health and Welfare confirmed a 1,500% rise between 2008 and 2018 in gender dysphoria diagnoses between 13 to 17-year-old born as girls. My commentary was brief, 2 words, social contagion. Within hours, colleagues denounced me as a transphobic bigot. Anonymous activists emailed universities to poison my job prospects. A professional job board even published mock job listings warning others not to hire me. My academic career never recovered. But I wasn't making an offhand remark or comparing a group of people to a disease vector, as some accused me of doing. I was referring to research published by Lisa Littman, a physician and researcher formerly with Brown University, who has coined the term rapid onset gender dysphoria in a 2018 peer-reviewed paper to describe a newly emerging cohort of adolescents, overwhelmingly girls with no childhood history of gender dysphoria or even sex nonconformity, who suddenly began describing themselves as transgender, often after friends in their peer group did the same. Dr. Littman proposed that the pattern was best explained by social contagion, meaning the spread of ideas or behaviors through peer influence. The term isn't an insult. It's well-established sociological concept used to describe how trends such as eating disorders and even suicide clusters can spread. Suggesting that social factors might cause or contribute to transgender identification violated fashionable left-wing dogma that gender identity is innate and an immutable trait, and that some people are born with one that conflicts with their sex. The claim underpins both medical practice and legal strategy. Progressives treat those who question these ideas as heretics or bigots, and yet you can't have a 50% drop-off in people identifying themselves as trans unless it's a social contagion. Genetic mutations don't work their way out of the system that quickly. It's been a social contagion that has informed public policy for the Democratic Party, that has driven them to the edges of society. And it turns out they were scammed by a social contagion. Let that be a lesson to all of us when waves of public policy based on broad popular support come about, when it turns out what's actually happening is just really a fad. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new climate summit out on climate change. It's happening in Brazil. Remember, they leveled part of the rainforest to build a road to get the conference delegates to the COP conference. So it is not a coincidence that the United States of America is about to be hit with probably the coldest blast of Arctic air in hundreds of years. My buddy Ryan, who is a meteorologist, a PhD, well, he did go to Florida State, though, but nonetheless, he tweets the atmospheric rarity of this cold anomaly is off the scale to be practically impossible from November 9th to 11th. Middle atmosphere temperatures of less than negative 40 degrees Celsius, extending from the Great Lakes into Kentucky. It might be the most extreme weather event we've seen in hundreds of years. At 500 millibars pressure level, the height and temperature anomaly is actually spherically shaped, a big round ball of ferocious cold attached to a polar vortex pendulum from Hudson Bay, Canada. Temperatures are going to drop insanely across parts of the United States. And while it's happening in Brazil, it's going to be upwards of 90 degrees. While here, we've got some record cold blowing through. They always have climate conferences when the blizzards start. Isn't that funny? I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. I was able to deposit cash. Y'all, I actually did very well at the craps table. It's the only one I play. And I don't worry about depositing cash on an online bank because Old Glory Bank makes it possible. You go to a local, they got 88,000 locations. In my case, it was CVS, scan my QR code, give them the cash, and they deposit it in my bank account. And it just works. They put a lot of thought into building Old Glory Bank. They would love to have you check them out at oldglorybank.com/Eric. You can get, like me, no fee checking, no fee savings accounts. You can get premium accounts. You get a lot at Old Glory Bank. They've got lots of great accounts. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Businesses, they'll take care of you. Veterans, first responders, active duty military, they'll really take care of you. By conservatives, for conservatives, and you're not going to have to worry about debanking trends. oldglorybank.com/Eric. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.